Hello everyone and welcome to Deckbuilding Derezzed. I'm your host, Code Marvelous, and today I'm joined by a friend from the Chicago meta, Will, otherwise known as Ulkrond.
Otherwise known as William Brown, the Destroyer, the Scorch King, the King of Tilt. All
Yeah,
these wonderful names you keep calling me.
that's fine. But Will is the mastermind of a deck that I only just realized is a pun name, Force of Will. Um, it's a Blue Sun meat damage deck that takes a very different direction than a lot of the other things that we've seen, and you've had some serious competitive success with this. So I wanted to have you on to talk about it. But before we get into that, Will, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit more about your Netrunner journey and what kind of attracted you to really invest heavily into this archetype?
The 90s! When Netrunner first came out in the 90s, where we used to play cards like Schlaghund, which would do, I believe it used to do like 10 meat damage if you rolled a die, and the die roll ended up less than the number of tags that the runner has, then yeah, 10 meat damage to the face. End the game. Or I've Got a Rock, where all you have to do is forfeit 3 agenda points and a click, and, well, 2 clicks, and make sure the runner is tagged twice, and then 15 meat damage. You know, in the beginning there was fire, and it was good.
Okay.
When then it ended with, the 90s turning into 2000, and then all of a sudden, hey, Netrunner's back. It's like, hey, Scorcher's is back. Where's the rest of the meat damage? I'm missing something. Where's the kill? Yeah, we're going to head and score agendas out? No, we're not going to do that.
Right. So you really built a deck around being able to land not just the scorched, obviously, but large amounts of meat damage.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you've done one of the heaviest meat damage decks that can possibly exist in the current meta. So let's get into it. So obviously we're using Blue Sun for this, which is pretty damn good. But tell me specifically what attracted you to this identity as opposed to one of the other Wayland identities for building this deck.
Well, it was originally core Wayland, where we could just generate a lot of cash quickly. We went to Blue Sun because it could also generate a lot of cash quickly, but it will hold that cash into late game. One of the earliest things that I learned after attending Worlds 2013 and losing every match in both the primary and secondary tournaments is that ice is useless. Just kill the runner, and your problem is solved. And to kill the runner, you have to use the key card that Wayland's built around, which is Scorched Earth. So focusing just on that, and with Blue Sun's ability to just hold money at where you are at, just continuously generating more, making it taxing for the runner, and then balancing out the res to tax cost of each ice. So we were totally looking at Curtain Wall for at 11, no matter what. Hadrian's Wall for 7, Hive for 6, which is an amazing deal. You have your Assassin for 5 or 9 if they take both of the traces, which I do not pump, unless on some sort of circumstance. And the fantastic Errand Boy, where it's both early, mid, and late game good taxing eyes. So
Yeah, Blue Sun just gives you a lot of money recovery, and it's worth noting that you can res a lot of things and then just recover money immediately the next turn.
Or just res one thing and just only return that cash investment. It's a bank. It helps against account siphon and vamp too.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, I would say Blue Sun is basically like your ice becomes a money bank, which is so. Let's get into the agenda suite, because you're running one of my favorite Wayland agendas right at the top of the list. We've got one government takeover.
Word for word reprint back from the 90s. I am so happy to have that card back. That, and I'm waiting for them to release World Domination, and my life's complete.
What was World Domination? I never played the 90s game.
Alright, so it's a 3-point agenda with 12 advancements. And if you advance it 12 times and score it, you get the other 4 points and win.
That's really funny. But not if they steal it.
No.
That's really funny. So government takeover thins out the agenda density, I imagine, and it's also your number one punitive target. I would imagine.
I mean, that and 5 other agendas, yeah, they're all number 1 punitive targets. I mean, Wayland really doesn't have defense, so you have to weaponize every damn thing you got.
That's fair. So we've also got just 5/3s. High risk investment, is kind of a more obvious choice because you get that counter where you can just negate the runner's credit pool when you're about to initiate a trace. But tell me why you picked the Hades fragment as opposed to any of the other 5/3s.
Noise decks.
Yeah, that's fair. And we've also got one Pyrrhec because, again, it creates an economic swing, I imagine, for us, especially with a lot of the barriers we have.
See, the choice was between using priority requisition and government contracts. Both of them are great economy engine cards, and you always want to have money. You just simply cannot out-money Wayland. So the idea was, do I want to have the credit boost now, or do I want to res ice with that credit boost? So it became priority requisition. I will return to government contracts in this meta, so...
Okay, but yeah, it's pulling double duty because it's a free piece of ice that can also be a money bank now.
But it could also be killed as well.
Right. Especially, with the double fork meta like we were discussing before we started recording. So, if we move down to assets, we've got a single Cerebral Overwriter. Now, I've seen this in Blue Sun before, and I've seen this in a lot of other Glacier-type decks where you're running big ice. Obviously, this isn't a Glacier deck, but bigger ice decks. How often would you say you were actually able to land this in competitive play?
Often.
Okay, so walk me through the play, how you read the board state. Are you just windmilling it in right when you're getting it, or how are you reading the board to get this to land?
There is no reading the board. There's reading the runner and reading the runner's ID and how aggressive that runner is.
Okay.
So if you're dealing with someone like Shaper, which is easily going to go ahead and build their foundation of their rig, then you're not going to land Cerebral Overrider unless it's behind 2 pieces of ice and they actually have SMC and a clone chip so they can tutor out in a lot of cash. That becomes good bait to install Advanced. If you're going against someone like Criminal, who's going to do this inside job over that piece of ice, sure, it's all Advanced on that. If you're going to get someone like Max, who thinks he got you back against the wall, go ahead and install Advanced without any ice. Or if you have someone who's just completely balls to the walls, I don't trust this person, is this an agenda? Install Advanced anyway.
Right.
See what happens.
That makes sense. So we got Grendel.
Now, Grendel is your flex slot. I wanted to run something that would be cash, since we're cash on the go, or bait. Since unadvanced things are boring to the runner, Grendel became that spot. With either that or using Shadow Remains, and I don't like Shadow Remains, but it might have to make a return. The next change for that will be using Consulting Visit.
Okay. So we've got 3 Jackson Howards. We don't really need to belabor that. I hear Jackson Howard's a really good card.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got 3 Snares.
Okay. Snares make runners stop, which is basically securing your R&D on its own. The one thing I kept noticing is that if they do not find anything interesting on the board, they will hit R&D. And if they do find something interesting on the board, they will still hit R&D to come up with something and finish off the game with that run on that remote or that run into headquarters. So Snare can work in R&D, archives, and headquarters. It can also work on remote if you're playing against Double Force. But it's more effective in R&D than out of R&D.
Right. And actually, I just recently recorded a video with Seamus from the UK, who plays the Argus deck. And one of the things that we discussed is that Snare, when hit, is like a turn hard stop for the runner. So it usually buys you the remainder of their clicks as they recover from it. Or
it's okay, I just took a snare, I'll just keep going and see what happens. And that's it.
Right. If they don't close that turn, they're probably going to die the next turn. All right. So going into our operations suite that we have here, we've got some of the usual money things. We've got the restructures, the hedge funds. But some of the other stuff that we've got going on is leading into the accelerated diagnostic shutdown combo.
Yes.
Which we hadn't really seen in Blue Sun before.
There was a deck that was on one of the Netrunner videos that did show off the accelerated diagnostics power shutdown combo. I mean, it was, I don't know if I want to say recent, but a couple years back, but It's the one combo that Dodd Harris hates with a passion. So, the idea here is that you take your kill money algorithm, and you just add 2 credits to it, and that secures the deal. You just got to have the same money as the runner for C-Source to land that tag, and just add 3 for every scorch you wish to use against that runner. And just make sure you add 2 credits for 1 for the shutdown, 1 for the accelerated diagnostics.
Right, but you could also do this combo with punitive, couldn't you?
Yeah. For punitive Counter-Strike, it takes a little bit more math. It's the equal amount of money and link minus 1 to have a punitive Counter-Strike be successful. And thanks to one of the people from GenTechieNet, MASN, capital M, capital N, he gave me wonderful equations on how to get triple punitive through a runner who has a superior amount of money. Not to land 3 punitives, but to get 1 successful punitive through, even if the runner has more money, thanks to math. So most of the game is based on some math anyway. So
yeah. So we are running the double kill package. We have both the Scorched Earths and the punitives. We also
Triple.
have triple, and we have the Singleton C source. And so some of the other operations that we do have 2 accelerated diagnostics, which for those of you who might not be familiar with it, it's the look at the top 3 cards of R&D. If any of those cards are operations, you may play them, ignoring any additional costs, trash the unplayed cards. So this card when it came out was kind of pan, but it works in combination with Power Shutdown and Jackson Howard, because you can Power Shutdown your whole deck and then cherry pick 3 cards to put back on top. But it's worth noting that if you screw this up, you just lose.
yeah, it's all math.
It's all math, yep. We got 3 Oversight AIs, because Oversight AI is just fantastic in Blue Sun.
Yeah, but as a crutch, really, in Blue Sun, I would want to return back to Core Wayland at some point, because, an operation and 2 clicks equals your melange for the day.
Right.
So you get more return on investment with that, with operation and clicking, than you do with just, it's the ice that you can break, and then I lost my 1 credit investment and protection.
Right, and the money bank.
Right.
I mean, Blue Sun was walking pretty big up until the David hit the scene.
No.
I mean,
David
if they pay 11 to get through your curtain wall, that was okay. Like, we were okay with that. Like, now we have a Singleton Subliminal in this deck. Tell me about what led to the inclusion of this into this deck.
Well, it's more utility of its free click that you can get out of doing the accelerated diagnostics combo, because there will always be times where I'm stuck holding 2 Scorches in hand. And with 2 Scorches in hand, the combo only fires once and then fizzles. Even if you have an extra click, you can only just get 1 Scorch out of the triple Scorch package that you could reasonably fire. Thanks to Subliminal, we have solved that problem. You get your cash, you get your trace off, you get your first Scorch, and then you go ahead and get the extra click, and then you have 2 clicks at the end of the combo that you can fire up both Scorches from hand.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good. I hadn't even thought of that, but that's very good.
Or the extra punitive from hand. So
right. Either way, yeah. It deals with the problem with the accelerated diagnostic shutdown combo, that when you're holding the cards in your hand, you're kind of trapped.
But it also makes the point that you have to have C-Source played or C-Source out of your hand in your archives for it to work.
Right. So as far as ice is concerned, we've got 3x curtain walls. I hear it's pretty solid. Now, how often, how do you... I mean, it's so tough right now with so many Anarchs going around, but, one of the biggest problems that I've had playing Blue Sun, and I'm sure it's true of other people, is, how do you kind of decide when you're going to oversight? Do you just go for it every time?
Go for it every time.
Go for it every time?
Doesn't matter. You pay 1 credit, they pay 3 credits.
Right.
If it's a David, if not, then they'll have to break through it with something even more massive.
Right.
But just get it out your hand. There's no reason to have an oversight in hand and not play it. At least tax the runner 3 credits with the David, or with the David and a clone chip, which is a total of 4 credits and a click.
Right.
That's one clone chip they can't get back.
And also a full use of a David.
Right.
But yeah, so in addition to that, while we're on the subject of eating up David counters, we do have 2 firewalls, which is one of my favorite pieces of ice, even though it's not super great. I like that it eats up David counters. How do you feel about, like, what was the reason behind the inclusion of Firewall in this deck?
4 credits. 4 credit tax.
Right.
I mean, it's better than a 3 credit tax you can get off of anything that's strength 4, like Bastion. But with the 5 credit return, when you bounce it, you're just 1 credit away from double scorching.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. We've got 3x Hadrian's Walls, which is the 10 for 7 barrier with 2 subroutines. So, again, chewing up some David counters. And it's like, you can pull this back and restructure.
Or just pull this back and get triple scorch.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Like, the blue sun money is just absolutely absurd. And it's worth noting that a lot of times, I would say, and maybe you could speak to your own experience, the blue sun creates this weird math where people just don't want to do things because they know that you can just take 10 credits back at any time. You know what I mean? Like, the siphon math is all messed up. Because you can just spend all of your money on ice, and then unlike other corps where now your money's gone, you're like, okay, well, I stopped the siphon, so now I'm going to take that card back and just be back at the amount of money that I was.
Well, I mean, you don't want to res all ice for siphon runs. You just want to res at least a tax of 6 credits, 4 to 6 credits, because they're going to be spending the other 4 credits to drop the tags after the siphon.
Right.
Which makes them net 0. And make sure that you stay at least 10. But if they want to go ahead and just keep firing off these account siphons, then I'll be happy to let them keep the tags.
Right.
The only fear is that they can shut it down or destroy that ice afterwards.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. We have 2 hives.
Oh, that's a wonderful 5 credit cost for a 6 credit tax. Even if not, they have to spend their data circuit tokens and a clone chip and a parasite, which is 4 credit tax, and all the time you had accumulating, making all those runs on centrals. Oh, you make me so happy.
Yeah, and you can always get rid of it when it's not useful anymore.
Right, you get 5 credits back and toss it away. Now, the idea was that I would try to combo that with red tape, but position things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The positioning stuff with ice is always really hard.
But think of it, a 5 sub 5 strength taxing barrier.
I mean, we can hope.
I mean, even with 2 subs, it's still amazing. All right, Spiderweb.
Pretty good. Yeah, we got 1x Spiderweb.
Right.
Which I'm kind of surprised of, because Spiderweb's been getting a lot of mileage and a lot of other builds for
Lady's
Wayland.
dead.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, I guess in my mind, I think since not a lot of Anarchs even have a Corroder in their deck, 3 cards from...
Yes, they do.
Most of the Dumblefork builds and Timmy Wiz and stuff like that only runs Mimic. They don't have any Corroders.
Well, that's just 3 cards out of their hand if you're Fausting it. Sorry, dude.
Yep, that's the idea. But yeah, I guess that makes sense. We've got a lot of other attacks. So 2x Assassin, we don't really need to belabor that too hard. Assassin is just a fantastic piece of ice.
It is. You can want to not pump traces to incur a 9 credit tax, which is a huge swing when you get the 7 credits back.
Oh, it's so good.
You can actually pump the trace to get that fire off, so you get the net damage in, and if they have an I've had worse, then you can say goodbye to that, and then they will back off a little bit. Trashing the programs is always a nice threat. Doesn't really matter. There's so much recursion out. But the idea is to have at least a couple pass-through ice, and ice that you definitely need to break or negative things will happen. And Assassin hits those marks.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because you don't want to
you
just have...
can't ignore that trace.
Right,
Yeah.
you just don't want the runner to bounce off everything like all the barriers. You want to have something that they can choose to ignore and still get in for that one server that has that laid trap for them.
Right. We got an Errand Boy.
Which is an amazing card.
It's an amazing card. It's arguably better, I would say, in Blue Sun, where you can pull it back.
Or they just let it fire and you draw 3 cards or get 3 credit boosts and then you get your 4 credits back. Or 1 card draw and 2 credit boosts. Might fill up the hand with something you need.
Yeah, it's a fantastic ice, especially for kill decks, I would say. So we've got a 1x Mother Goddess.
Which wins the games.
Okay, so explain to me. Like, I'm not disagreeing with you, because I've definitely seen that happen. But in this deck, what's the role that Mother Goddess is filling?
Put it somewhere where you just don't want the runner to go to, like a remote. Especially runners that have built their rigs all about handling any problem except that one mythic piece of ice. Geist decks, Haley decks. Yeah, I mean, 7 credit tax for getting Atman out is nasty. Using Faust on Mother Goddess makes me cry. But Criminal, pretty much stuck.
Right, you can basically rush out behind it if that's the only thing you've got rezzed.
But you're not rushing. You're just getting the agenda the key agenda that you want scored.
Right.
Or advance it enough to make it look juicy for the runner to bypass it, make that run, lose a click, and trigger off anything that says unsuccessful run. Do nasty things.
True. Yeah, it's good. I feel like a lot of Wayland decks really benefit from Mother Goddess as a good no influence piece of neutral ice. You know what I mean?
Next to Excalibur.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But yeah, I mean, the deck's got a lot of... Well, it has a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of different avenues to victory.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really most excited for the test run, where we're going to go over this, because this is not the Blue Sun that I really played when I was playing Blue Sun. I played the hybrid Glacier with, like, the kill side dish. You know what I'm talking about?
Right, but my philosophy after 2013 Worlds is ice is useless, kill the runner, and your problem is solved.
I think that's a fair assessment. Well, Will, thank you very much for coming on.
Sure.
And we're going to take it for a spin on test run against somebody on competitive Jinteki and see how we do.
Competitive Jinteki? All right.
And for everybody listening at home and watching at home, until we catch you again, always be running.
And never mulligan.
Never mulligan.